This is Mount Marathon, and these slopes are home to the oldest, most dangerous, and wildest foot race in North America, where hundreds of people will run to the top of this peak above Seward, Alaska, and then hurtle down in one of the wildest 4th of July celebrations anybody has ever heard of for the last 100 years. But once all the runners are through and the dust is settled, this slope returns to quietly sit above Seward, Alaska, where it becomes one of the best places to see all of the landscapes in this amazing part of the world, and a really, really great place to make a little sketch.
Now this mountain is steep, but it's always steeper than I remember. Oh my gosh. So this is the halfway point, which is extreme, considering that the next half is pretty hardcore, but it is one of the best views once you get out of those trees. So I think this is where I'm going to sit and paint, partially because it's gorgeous, but also partially because I'm not sure if I can stand up again. So, should have a little bit of everything that I need here. Bear spray, which is key. Hopefully we don't need that, but I have seen lots of bears in this meadow right down here before. They are really full of berries in the later part of the year. And we've got some art supplies. Get some of those out. A little bit of everything here. Here's a sketchbook. Got some pens. A little bit of watercolors. Tiny little bit of one of these. You can just fill it up with water if you need. Put one of those down. No streams up here, so you gotta pack in your own. Put a little bit of that right here. Try not to spill it. There we go. A couple brushes, a couple pens, and I think we should have a gorgeous day for painting. Seward is not exactly known for its sun, shall we say, but when it does come out, there is almost no better place on earth. And just looking out at some of those mountains, you got, gosh, the islands back there. Oh, beautiful. This wind is definitely bringing in some other weather, so no race today. That was yesterday, but the real race might be a race against the rain. All right, move some rocks out of the way, make a nice good little bench here. Let's sit down and do some sketching. All right, I'm going to, let's see, open up the sketchbook here. What do we got? Blank page somewhere in here. Nope, nope, nope. There we going. Right here. I like those are the seams in the middle, because that's like where the that's where it'll lay flat best. All right, get a little bit of something holding it down. Maybe we'll grab a rock here. Yeah, slightly bigger rock. There we go. There's no shortage of rocks to choose from. Tell you what. All of that being said, I have something in mind. I'm not seeing it. There we go. Okay. So a couple rocks there. That should work just fine. Our watercolors, our brush, our water. Brush right here. Okay. And tiny bit of variety. I'm thinking we sketch Seward, although if you can see, I mean, it is 360 degrees of beautiful here. And the wind is picking up, but you could paint just about anywhere and get a good looking sketch. Like this is bare right over here, these mountains way over there. If you can see those are some beautiful, little bit of that winter snow still in there. And then you got this gully down here. I think the hardest thing is probably just going to be narrowing this down, but we're going to see what we have going on. When it comes to Alaska, the two hardest things for sketching are, well, sketching in Alaska, it's a lot of time freezing, snow, all of the rest, but then the second hardest is just picking the right spot. So I'm thinking it's just going to be the whole view. Let's give something nice and broad. So whatever it is, I'm going to start by putting a little bit of a line. Let's see, is this the pen I want? Something a little bit bolder right now. We'll give this a shot. Okay, so here's my line right there. It will virtually disappear. I usually use a slightly thinner pen, but this works too. Whatever it is, you just need something that is kind of waterproof. That is what counts when it comes to watercolor. Just get our rocks out of the way here. That's all that really matters. And I'm basically making myself a coloring book, which I'm going to paint in later. And by later I mean in like 45 seconds. Here, maybe I'll scoot down. Something like this. And the reason I'm kind of making myself a frame is it just kind of gives me something to gauge and kind of hold where everything is. And now it's time to pick. And I will be honest, I am not the kind of person who will like paint exactly. I'm not about to make a photo. If I want a photo, I'll take a photo. This is going to be a painting. So I'm thinking we need to mostly just kind of make a cool looking outline here. Let's see how this goes. So we got Seward way down there. Let's kind of sketch that in, probably something like this. Kind of see the docks where the tsunami took it out about, what, 64 was it? Got our little trees kind of coming up here. And then we got this mountain right here. Scooping on up. There's bear right over there. Not sure if it's the most accurate thing I've ever sketched, but you're about to see the raw, unfiltered, uncut process of making a sketch in Alaska. A little bit of this. Coming up here, down and around. And if it's not perfect, that is totally fine. This is one of those landscapes that's pretty forgiving. If you're just close, you're in good shape. Okay, a little bit there. And just kind of coming around. These mountains are beautiful. Ooh, boy. Glad nobody's seeing this. Okay, and then a little bit of this line here. How does that look? There we go. Something like that. Perfect. Perfect-ish. It'll do. A little bit more trees, and then we have these trees coming in down here. And there is our outline. Rest of Seward, just kind of scooting itself down there. Like I said, not the most fancy sketch that I've ever made, but it'll do the trick. Now if you want, you could always put like some kind of boat, cruise boats or sailboats, just a little bit of everything zipping their way down here. Maybe I'll put one in just like right here or something like that. In all honesty, they're much, much, much smaller than this. That's about the size of a cruise boat when you look at it. You can kind of see this one way over there docked. It might take off here while we're sketching. Who knows? Okay, so we got a little bit of all of this. Maybe I'll add a little bit of the snow of these mountains. The geographers among everybody must be cringing right now with how loose I'm taking this. But I do feel like when it comes to sketches, I'm trying to get how something feels, not always how it looks. And there are some good pen lines. You can always come back in, add more if you want later. Woo, here comes the wind. All right, but let's just jump right in and get some sketching going on, because I did say it's going to be a race against the weather, and I think that is more accurate than I'd like to admit. All right, so we've got all of this, and we're going to start with the light stuff and then work dark. So I can see the clouds are there. We got some cool looking mountains and some snow. So why don't we start with some of that? I'm going to grab just a little bit right here. Got a nice big brush. My colors, I've got some cerulean blue, some, what is that? Not Peruvian. What is it? Ultramarine, that's what it is. Ultramarine, French ultramarine. Some purple, indigo, green, yellow, light yellow, orange, red. I'm going to learn the names of all these colors one day. It has not sunk in yet. I'm going to start with some cerulean blue right here. And I'm just going to add just a touch to some of these mountains, and that's going to give our snow a little bit more depth, because it's white up there. It's bright, bright white, but it's not pure white. There's all these shadows and interesting little bits. And just adding a little bit, not all of it, just, you know, some sections. It'll kind of help break it up, especially because there are some interesting things happening in the clouds right now. And that's kind of classic Seward. Seward is a little bit of a rainy place, or at least known as that. Actually, I'm gonna add just a little bit of snow up here, so some right there, just for fun. It does come in a little bit later, but we'll get some in our painting. Beautiful. Okay. While I got on my brush, maybe I will add in just a touch of that snow. Oh, looks like it's bleeding a bit. Should have been more patient. And then next lightest thing, so you can kind of squint your eyes. This is how I do it a lot of times. You look and you kind of squint your eyes. If you have glasses, you can take them off. But when everything's kind of blurry, what's light and what is dark? That's sort of how you do a lot of art, is you're just kind of breaking it down into shapes. So I'm looking at it, it's kind of like the sky is the brightest, and then you got this beautiful bay right here. And so we're gonna be kind of capturing all of that. It is kind of lighter out there. It's almost like this teal, a little bit of a kind of stormy gray. So we're gonna put a couple colors in there, and we're gonna do it all while it's still wet, and that's gonna give this really watery look, which I love. So if you want to watch and then follow along, that is totally fine. Or if you want to just go for it, that is also absolutely totally fine. Watercolor is kind of about being a little bit messy, so it's okay. If you need permission, you got it from me right now. I'm going to start by actually adding water itself. I'm basically going to get everything a little bit wet so it is nice and flowy. And you'll notice I'm being really pretty liberal with these lines. I'm going over them, I'm going around them, I'm going through them. And that's because what we're about to add right now is going to be really light, and everything else on top of that is going to be much darker. So it doesn't make too much of a difference if it's lighter or darker, because it is going to just kind of cover it up. That's why watercolor is so great. It's called subtractive. If you want a fancy term, it means that you have all the white on your page and you're subtracting it, compared to like oils or something where you're going to be adding it on top of. Okay, so I got my paper a little bit wet there, and now I'm going to come in, and if you look out there, there's these little dappled patches. I'm seeing like a touch of purple, I'm seeing a little bit of blue, I'm seeing some, maybe even a little bit of brown almost. And so I'm just going to start to add a little bit of these colors and let them all kind of mix on the page. So I'm going to start with that way far back over there, which I'm actually going to add a little bit of blue here. So I got a cerulean blue, and I'm just going to let it lay on the page, and in my case drip down. But I'm just adding a little bit of this blue. And I do definitely paint things that are more colorful than they look. It happened by accident at first, but I like it when it feels like how it is. And I'm not sure if you can quite feel it there, but this whole place is so colorful in so many different ways everywhere you look. And I don't feel like a photo always gets it, and that's why I do a lot of painting. Because paintings can they don't get it all the way, but it's slightly closer. Oh, hello, Bumblebee. What are you doing up here? All right, now a little bit of purple. And a little bit of purple maybe to the side here. Kind of as a little stripe, but like I said, watercolor is gonna do what watercolor is gonna do. I'm kind of just like a teacher. I'm hoping it goes where I want it to, but I'm not really in control. I'm gonna add maybe a bit of brown. Maybe just a touch of brown right over here. That's partially just to kind of have some fun. Give something slightly less blue, but there are all kinds of colors sort of mixed up. It's a lot of kind of glacial silt in there, and it's all just hidden by different bits of sun. There is some white, so I will leave a little bit blank if I can, but already loving where this is going. Maybe a touch more purple in here, just for fun. Might even add a bit of indigo too, a little bit of light bit. This is kind of your chance to be a bit of a hodgepodge. If you want, you can even add like a little bit of red or purple or pink, or you can really kind of add what you're feeling. And I like to do this stuff at the beginning of a painting because it kind of frees up the rest of it. We will get way more on purpose. We will get way more kind of locked in here, but right now we're just gonna add some fun colors. This is some clouds here. I'm just messing with some indigo, kind of watering it down a little bit, and just adding some of these cool textures to some of these clouds, which are just floating all over the place. So you really don't need to worry too much about getting the right shape, because it's going to change in just a minute. Okay, and then maybe a little bit more. I'll mix maybe some blue and some green and try to get some kind of that glacial blue, which is so beautiful down here. A little bit of that there, something, and then maybe a bit more of just blue. Okay, so we got something like that. There we go. And then, like I said, watercolor is going to kind of flow and mix and meld. So if you need, you can come in, touch-ups, but mostly just let it do its thing. Got a little bit here. There we go. Let that all do what it is. I'm breaking some lines, but we're going to fix all of those in just a moment. Gotta take it in too. Oh my gosh. We got the binoculars here. We got some
just for a quick geography lesson. So way out there, those islands include all kinds of cool ones, including Fox Island, which is actually where Rockwell Kent lived for a while. He's a really amazing American painter who did some pretty wild stuff, but lived out there for a couple of years, I think, at least winters or seasons, and would row from that dock, where you can't quite see it. Well, actually, no, you can barely see it. That dock right there, he rowed all the way out to Fox Island in a rowboat, which is wild. Even on a Zodiac or a water taxi, it's pretty intense. And so I had to go all the way out there where he was living. Sometimes I think his son was out there sometimes. And that was like a really formative thing. But he'd row into town too, for groceries or a drink or whatever it was. I don't think every day. It probably takes 13 or 14 hours, or at least it would from me. So that's kind of way out there. That's one of these, way out there. There's also all these wild kind of fortifications from World War II. They thought they were going to be invaded in Seward, so they fortified it up. Okay. Now, once things are a tiny bit drier, we're going to touch on this sky, which you can see is kind of rapidly approaching. And sky is kind of funny because you kind of need to do all of it at once. If you look, there's no real hard lines. A lot of them are kind of soft, and we have some blue, and there's white, and then also in the background it's kind of darker. So we're going to kind of do that all at once too. We're doing all the hard stuff first. So if things feel like they're moving a bit fast, it's because they are, especially because I don't want to be caught up here in the rain. And so we're going to add a little bit of water, and then we're going to put some kind of dark sort of cerulean to carve out these mountains right here. And then we're going to come in with a little bit of that blue way up top, I think. Nobody really knows when it comes to watercolor. It's kind of your best start of a plan. All right, now let's start with maybe a touch of water right up here, kind of where some of those clouds are going to be. Something like this. The reason I'm adding that is just to kind of let stuff flow a little bit longer, and it kind of buys you some time too. That's what it does. Buy yourself a little bit of time. Ooh, I might need to not buy myself time because that rain is gonna hit us. Alright, a little bit of indigo here. And what I'm gonna do with this is I'm actually gonna kind of carve out these mountains, right? Right now they're just kind of a scribble, but the second I put some of this dark indigo, it's gonna kind of highlight them and almost frame them, which you kind of do see out there. So that's gonna look something like this, and then I'm gonna hit it with a bit of water. So if you wanna watch closely, just kind of one line like this, just following the curve. Now I'm getting a little bit less messy. And something like that. Don't worry if you're not totally accurate, but something like that. And then I'm gonna rinse that off and come in with a little bit of water up top. And that, while it's still wet, it's kind of pulling it all in. It's gonna create this cool kind of cloud look. Something kind of like this. Right? Sort of looks cloud-esque. You can just come back in, add some more indigo if you need down here, but for the most part, you kind of want if you can, be a one-hit wonder there. Just something like that. Now, if you want, you can try to do it again. Just realized I might actually add a touch more of a little bit of a line. We do have our islands, but I guess technically there is open ocean beyond that. I just realized I can kind of see it. Maybe there were some clouds that I couldn't see, but just add a little bit of open ocean just to give myself a horizon so I realize what I'm looking at. There we go. Okay, a little bit of that. That'll do. And it's a work in progress. No one will know at the final. And then you can keep on kind of moving some of that water if you need to. I'm gonna add a little bit more of that indigo. Maybe I'll mix it with some of that ultramarine blue. Just something kind of dark. Darker and bluer, but not too dark. Because we need those islands to be a little bit darker in the foreground. So there we go. A little bit of that darkness right here. And then when you add some water, it just kind of lightens everything right up too. So you got some ways to fix that. There we go. A little bit of water. Just moving up, scooting around. You get these lovely textures, which you really can't control. That's all the watercolor doing the hard work for you. Okay, so you got something like this. You're just kind of mixing it. I don't want too many hard edges. Although maybe I want some of these little lines too. I kind of like those little lines of clouds, kind of almost like rows. Marching up, give Seward a drink of water, which Seward gets plenty of.
Okay, so something like that. It's a start, but we will add some blue sky in. I did see it before it disappears. And actually, what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to stand up because my legs are cramping from that height. So, hold. Oh, gotta go shake it out here. You're just going straight up on this mountain. Okay. Alright, shaking stuff out. Back to it. Maybe I'll kind of do some of this here. The side set. Nope. Let's see. I feel like a dog trying to find a comfy spot on the rug. Okay, so now let's get a little bit more of that sky. We're going to be coming in and adding some of this blue, and that's going to kind of give the shape of our clouds. So let's see, a little bit of blue right here. So we're gonna add a little bit of blue, and this, like all of this could be cloud. So if you like it, you could leave that there. But if you want to add a little bit of blue like this, just a touch up here. That's usually about as much blue sky as you get in Seward. Touch up here. And you see now all of a sudden that's the cloud. So kind of, if you want, add these little bits of blue, and they kind of give you that border of where things are. You can add a bunch of big paint like this, or if you want, you can also come in with some just water if you've done that, and just let it kind of flow and get those soft edges, which also looks really fun. Although if you like the look, leave it alone. I do find with watercolor, a lot of times I make something I love, and then I just keep on adding paint to it until I don't love it anymore. So if you like where it is, just kind of give it a rest. It'll be there. You can always add more on later. There we go. So got a little bit of that blue just in there, making an appearance. I do kind of love it too when it's a little bit of cloud and a little bit of blue. Don't get me wrong, I love bluebird sunny days, although this is about as bluebird as Seward gets. But there's something nice when you get a little bit of a balance, you get a little bit of everything. It makes you appreciate those spots of sun all the more. Speaking of which, I think we might have lost ours. We'll see if it comes back. Okay, a little bit of this there, a little bit of this here, and voila. There we go, something like that. It's coming. The beautiful part is, regardless, I mean, look at this view. You know, you could end up with nothing, and this is still worth it. There's some bald eagles flying down there earlier, which is wild when you're above the birds. Oh, here comes our sun back. Okay, so we've got our sky, we've got our Resurrection Bay right here, and now we got Seward down here, and then we'll touch on probably these. So if you squint your eyes, take off your glasses, you're gonna see that the next lightest thing is town, way down there, followed by these mountains right here. So let's go get some of those going on right here. A little bit of town. If you want, you could come in with some pen. That's totally acceptable. We do kind of have some streets moving forward. Let's see, I'm just adding some little bit of texture down here. Some people like to add it after the fact too. That street's way too big, that's okay. I'm just kind of adding some kind of grids, a little bit of maybe a house, maybe another house, something like this. And that kind of just gives a little bit of texture, maybe a couple of trees there on the edge. The thing is, it's very hard to like capture, I guess, what it feels like to be up here, because I'm looking down and I can see people and I can see all of Seward, but then you look up and you're looking at just eagles and mountains, and the scale of this place is so hard to even wrap your own head around, let alone try to put it in a painting. Not to mention that it kind of feels like you're looking through history too. Right below us is where the big tsunami happened, so I really should have looked this up beforehand. I think in 1964, right? Could have been 61. And this massive tsunami just rolled in. It was a big earthquake, and it sent this huge tsunami rolling in. Down there used to be a big kind of port and refinery. A lot of it got washed away. Fortunately, there wasn't too much loss of life. I think a lot of people in the small boat harbors didn't see it coming because they were kind of rocked in their boats, and that was
really tragic, but also the way Alaska came together was amazing. Actually, it sent people up to kind of observe what happens during a major calamity, and they were shocked that everybody they were there for each other. There's a case study on it where they were just shocked at how caring of a community all of Alaska was, really. And so you're painting all of that within this little sketch here too. Okay, so I got a little bit of some lines there, and it's kind of imagine like Goldilocks and the Three Bears. You have your lights, your mediums, and your darks. That's all you really need to get a kind of a shape. So we've got our lights there, I suppose. And now I'm just gonna add some mediums, and I'll come into some darks. So a little bit of just kind of recycling the palette here. Looks like a bit of indigo and brown and blue. Just something that's slightly less than pure white, which is kind of just, nothing on the paper. And I'm just gonna add a couple little sides, just of some shadow, maybe some here, maybe a little bit there. Just adding a little bit of texture. And that's gonna kind of come into play when we add those darker textures here in just a moment. A little bit would do. You could also do something like this. You could also just get a bunch of water in your brush and just kind of flick if you want. Just kind of getting some general shapes right there. We'll come in, we'll make it a bit fancier in just a moment. Might need a touch of green too. There's quite a lot of trees. Okay, a little bit of here, a little bit over here. Okay. Ooh, that wind is picking up. Barely hear myself think. Alright, there we go. So while that's drying, ooh, stay put please. Thank you. So while that's drying, let's start to work on these mountains right here, because we've got some really kind of luscious hillsides in that sun right now, and let's see if we can capture that while it's going. So I'm gonna get myself a little bit of probably some nice yellow on the brush, and then I'm gonna add my green. I'd love to start with a little bit of yellow because it's such a hard color to work with, but it's lovely, the kind of sunniness, and then when you add blue to yellow, it becomes green. When you add green to yellow, it becomes kind of a different green. Just kind of a little bit of yellow right up here. Just working through it. And then let's come in with our green. And while they're still wet, they'll kind of meld together here. Watercolors are opaque, which means that they're transparent. You can kind of see what's below them, so that's why it's sometimes fun to get a little bit of some other colors in there. Get a little bit of green in here. There we go, and then I'll just top that off with a bit of water and let it bleed down into that next mountain, which we'll work on in just a second. Now, up top, if you want, I put a little bit of snow there, but often snow, and if you can see, the snow is kind of next to brown, because as the snow disappears, it goes kind of from brown to green and lightens up. So for the stuff right next to the snow, it is just becoming spring right now. So I'm gonna add a little bit of brown next to my snow up here, and we'll do the same in the mountains down below as well. But first, we're just gonna add a little bit of snow right here, or at least brown. Make that happen, and then we'll kind of finish up this mountain. Doing it all while it's still wet, just because I want that look. I might even add a little bit of purple too to the edge. Do you kind of see how that edge is sort of purple-esque? I don't know why it is, but the edges, when you kind of see something next to something bright, it kind of becomes much darker. I don't know if that's something our eyes do or just how it is. Here's a little bit of purple right toward the edge, just to kind of let that mix in. Ooh, and it's almost already dry. Wow. That's the beauty of wind, I suppose. There we go, some little bit of texture. Ooh, there's a spider going right across. Wow. Hey friend, why don't you go find somewhere else? Oh, nope, okay, you're just gonna go right there. Alright. So you can also add a little bit of like drips or kind of splatters. So here's a little bit of purple here. I might go just a little bit like that, just to give a little bit of texture. It's kind of fun sometimes. You could also individually put them in if you want. You could just grab a little bit of green or something and just put all those trees like that. That is totally cool too. A little bit less messy. Kind of depends on what artist you are. All right, so I'll just kind of spread that out, let it dry a little bit more. We'll come right back to this next one. I just realized I never painted in my ocean because I put that in separately, so I'm gonna just add that over right now. A little bit of some blue, I believe, kind of whatever color that was, but something just slightly lighter, just like that. There we go. Gotta get all the parts of the page. So our ocean is nice and dry. Might be time to go work on some of these mountains. You can see a couple people over there climbing up. They're probably gonna go to the top. They have stronger quads and calves than I do right now. That's okay. That's the beauty part of painting, is it's like this great excuse just to kind of sit and look at something. Any other thing, if you just sat and I'm gonna go take a picture for an hour and a half, or I'm gonna you guys go on. I'm just gonna go sit and look at the woods for 45 minutes. They might look at you strange, but you pull out a sketchbook and all of a sudden it's socially acceptable. Okay, so with these mountains, we have some kind of, you can kind of see there's a little bit of brown in the background, and they are beautiful. Like I could paint those all day long. In fact, I might take a couple reference photos or maybe a couple sketches and take those back with me and make some other paintings. That is gorgeous. But we're gonna start with a little bit of brown. Some burnt sienna is what this brown is called. It's kind of a graham cracker, maybe like a toast brown. And I'm gonna add just a little bit, just where some of those elements are. And that's just giving us a little bit of that kind of rock that's in those mountains. If you wanted, you could see all of it and be really, really delicate and careful and totally get all of them just right, but I'm kind of just going for the overall look and just to show where the snow is. And by putting this rock in, everything that I leave is snow, and that's gonna look really good. But do you see how a little bit of that brown just kind of starts to carve out that mountain in a pretty cool way? Might even add a little bit of purple and kind of touch on some of that brown where those shadows are. So come back in, maybe do the exact same thing, but a little bit of purple in some of those places. There we go, maybe especially on the shadowy side of the mountain. All right, a little bit here, a little bit there. There we go. Doesn't take much, just a little bit. We're kind of letting that dry. Now while that's drying, I'm actually gonna work on this other little piece too, because we're gonna kind of come out and make that a little bit more. And these lower parts of the mountain have no snow on them, so they're almost entirely brown up top, and then they go green and then kind of blue toward the bottom. So a little bit of brown. When I look at it, actually it kind of all looks, now there's some shadow in there, it almost all looks dark, but the second that the sun hits it, I'm confident in my colors. A little bit of brown, maybe a bit of purple too. We'll go brown to purple and then to green. And I'm just kind of mixing those, lickety split. Not too wild. Oh, here comes people down. You can kind of see them zipping through. A little bit of some purple.
Micah.
And oh, hey Max.
Hi.
I'm doing a watercolor tutorial. This is Max King. He's very fast, and I think what, won the race twice? Once?
Twice.
Twice. Okay. 2-time winner. Max King. This is totally unplanned. This is hilarious.
I know. Are you live right now?
No. But I want to do it like 360 so you can actually see everything.
Okay.
So, so you can just spin around.
Cool.
Anyway, Max is super quick and got second yesterday.
Yeah.
And is back up on the mountain. What are you doing?
I had to take Micah up to the top. He wanted to see the top. He's never been up there, so we were like, yeah, let's go to the top. So we took the alternate, easier way up, and now we're coming back down. And now we gotta go to the airport.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. I can't believe you're moving.
Yeah, it's not too bad. I'm sore. I'm really sore.
All right. Well, we got the view of Seward here and just kind of sketching, trying to catch it before this rain comes. So.
Yeah, it looks like it's
just
clouding up a bit. So.
Yeah, it'll be a fun one. Wow. Well,
Great to see you.
great to see you.
Yeah.
And yeah, good luck on the legs. Let me know how those are tomorrow.
Yeah, they're gonna be hurting worse. So. Oh no. There's Micah.
There it is. How was the top? Yep. Rushing through the sketch. All right. I gotta get these going. Yeah. Sorry, I gotta get this mountain here while it's still good. Good luck on that down trail.
Good to see you. See you, Max.
See you, Max. See you, Micah. All right, a little bit of this green now. Oh, looks like it's a little. Oh no, it's still wet. Just wet enough. That's a great part of Alaska. You never know where you're gonna run into people, you know.
especially when these mountains are so like barren. Like I don't know how many people climb some of these mountains. Probably maybe one every year, maybe one every other year. But it is great when you do see everybody. Okay, a little bit of green, and then we are going to be touching on some slightly darker. As soon as we get down lower, it's slightly darker. There's a little bit of some dark blue right here. Oh, there they go. Zoom. A little bit of dark down here. Maybe you can't see because of the cliff right here, but this shale that they're running down it's kind of like skiing down a slope. It's strange because you can't quite hike. You almost have to just kind of ski, because every step you take, you're going a foot or two down. And here you go. You can see all the dust coming out. But it feels like you're gonna, be absolutely trashing the trail because it's all this erosion. But the truth is, in the winter, the avalanches bring way more shale down. Everything here is just gonna kind of be stripped down. At least down in these gullies, gonna be stripped down by avalanches in the winter. It's pretty intense. But Alaska's kind of got two seasons. They say Alaska has two seasons: winter and construction season, which is very true. But our winter is 6 or 7, sometimes 8 months, depending on the year. Although it has been changing quite a lot. We had almost no winter last year, which is terrible. Alright, so got a little bit of kind of those colors in there. Like I said, I'm painting it how it feels, not always how it looks. But they're just so colorful when you really look over. Alright, that's looking lovely. Now these islands way in the back, they are lighter and bluer the further off they are. So we're going to add a couple of those right now, and then as they get closer, then they get much, much, much lighter. So let's add in a little bit of those here, maybe in just a moment. Actually, let's start with this right here. Watercolor is kind of like it's like a puzzle. You got to figure out what to do when. There's no real wrong or right answers, but this is dry, so let's jump into it while we can. We got a little bit of some contrast up here, but it actually is kind of pretty green. So I'll add a little bit more green down here, and a little bit of yellow, kind of like putting everything in a mixing bowl. And then let's actually let that sit here. We'll let this dry. Just kind of right there, just kind of getting that base color in, almost all of those bushes. And then perhaps we add in our city down here, because this is all going to be much darker. So when it comes to the city, let's put in that, like I said, kind of Goldilocks and the Three Bears style, right? We've got our lights, our mediums, and our darks. So we have our lights and our mediums in there. Now, kind of picking what is the darkest shade down there, what's the darkest shade, and a little bit of blue, some green. Doesn't have to be perfect. I might even add a bit of brown, actually. I might actually start with brown. I'll wipe stuff off. I might add just a touch of brown to the edge. It actually used to be a huge dock right here. You can kind of see where it used to be, because there's like some pylons and things sticking out. And it's a strange story, but there's a big insurance thing, if I remember it right. They were either insured for an earthquake or they were insured for a tsunami, but it wasn't both. And so there's a big fight over what knocked down the dock. Was it the earthquake or was it the tsunami? Because in one case somebody's going to pay, and in one case they weren't. There's actually a model of it, I think, in the museum down there, which is really amazing, where they tried to kind of prove one way or another. I think they ended up splitting the difference, but I'm just painting that in right there, a little bit there. Here come another group trekking up, if you can see there on the side. And then a little bit over to the side. And now let's add some of those darker bits, kind of the trees and the shadows and all that. A little indigo maybe, a little bit of that. Are they going all the way to top? Probably. Okay, a little bit of some of these darker shades. And the reason I'm kind of adding it now is if I want to kind of fill in this tree line later on, it's better to do this now, because otherwise I'm kind of trying to work around it. So a little bit over here, a little bit over here. Gotta get my trees there on the side. There we go. And if
you want to, you can always do kind of a fun technique. If you want some texture, you can load up your brush like this. You can take your finger, you can kind of flick. That's going to give you kind of cool little spackly bit. If you just kind of want some interesting texture down there, just because there are so many like little bits of everything. A lot of little kind of tricks with watercolor like that. You can also take a little bit of tissue paper and kind of dab in here and then dab in there. It creates some really interesting texture stuff. Or you can do it manually by brush. It just sometimes takes a little longer, which is fine. There we go. Just a little bit of something. Kind of get the general sense. That's what it's about here. Okay, we're moving along. Feels kind of ADHD-like we're jumping from thing to thing, but I find like that's just painting in a place like this. There's no real right or wrong too, so if you're still on those mountains, that is totally fine. Now with these boats, you can kind of see they're scooting around. I might add a little bit of wake on one of them too now. Just like a touch of, maybe just a touch of kind of some light watered down blue, something like this. A little bit of that V just coming through. Depending on the day, you can also see whales down here. Sometimes they come right in. Definitely a lot of sea lions down there that we're not seeing. Sea otters all over the place. Another little tiny boat down here. So small you can't even see the boat, but you can see its wake. Or you can always do some kind of spackling too. You can kind of flick some little bits there. There we go. Kind of gets a little bit of that those sailboats all at once. Okay, so now we've got a little bit of a mess. Let's clean it up here with some texture. We got all of these way back, and I'm actually now seeing even more, kind of seeing the process here. I'm seeing much more clearly now that there's some better sun down there that it is kind of a striation. So we've got our mountain, but then there's like another cliff and it comes down, and then there's one of these and it kind of comes up and down. So I'm gonna add a few of those in. Perhaps I'll actually fix this on the stencil. And that is how we're gonna kind of pick what is light versus what is dark in the long run. And I'll show you how that's gonna work. There we go, so got a couple of those and a couple of these, there we go. Do not use this sketch to navigate by. It's gonna be a little bit off, but so long as nobody does that, I think we're gonna be just fine. So the light stuff in the back is, well, the far stuff in the back is slightly lighter. It's called atmospheric distillation. There's your like second fancy term of the day. It just means that the further back something is, the lighter and the bluer it is. It means there's more just atmosphere in the way. Oh, another bumblebee. These cute little things too. I guess I am right next to some flowers. I should expect them. I just don't expect to see them this high. So I'm going to get up some blue, some light blue, some dark blue. Just mixing those up right here. And we're going to kind of, let's see, we're going to kind of paint in some of these back islands. It's okay if you paint in the front islands or like little pieces here or there too, because the darker stuff will kind of fill it all in. So there you go, some back islands, a little bit of that. Perfect. And then, while that dries, we're basically do the exact same thing, just a little bit more indigo or a little bit more blue. So in just a second, we'll kind of keep on working our way forward and forward and forward. Assuming this wind doesn't blow me off the mountain first. Ooh. I think it might be time to work on this part. Let's see, I can't help myself, just get a little bit more of these houses there. There we go. I think it might be time to work on this part right here. We've got that nice kind of base green. Let's add the rest of it right now. A little bit of some green kind of coming down into this valley right here. Just kind of adding that because we're going to add some purple and blue in a second. And so I'm just kind of adding a little bit of some color that will stick when I want it to flow, just like this. Now I'm going to add some purple. Right down here. Kind of going green to purple. You can kind of see how it's darker towards town. A little bit of purple. And then maybe we'll come in with some blue, although maybe I should add just a touch of brown or something in there just to give a slightly different color. There we go. And now let's add some blue kind of closer to town here.
this nice dark ultramarine blue. It's a very cool kind of ridge there towards the town, definitely more in shadow. In the winter, some of these valleys don't see sun for months, but in the summer, with so much sun, it is hard not to stay out till 11 o'clock or midnight, because it's just these valleys are just full of alpenglow. It's just one of the most beautiful places out there. Okay, a little bit of some blue just to make those valleys, and basically just kind of put a little stripe, and then I'll use some water to kind of pull them off to the side here in just a second. So a little valley right there, a little bit of water up here. Something like that. If you want to, you can kind of come in with a lot more at the bottom. Ooh, that's getting a little bit watery. No drips, please. Always dry stuff off on a rock or something, and then use the brush as a sponge, almost. Let's see, maybe the bigger one here. Sponge that up. Tissue paper is also a great resource, which I did not bring any of right now. Okay, a little bit there. Okay, something kind of like that. That looks wonderful. And then, in just a second, let's start working on some of those trees up top. You see how there's kind of this like line of trees right up top? We'll add some of those in just now to kind of add that differentiation between these two ridges. What color are they? They're kind of purplish, they're kind of blue. We'll add a little bit of everything here. Here's some purple, we'll come back into some blue maybe. Whatever it is, just something kind of darker and colorful. That's what I like. I wonder if some of it too is in the winter there's so little color that I started to use watercolor as a way to kind of add color into my landscapes. Although actually I take that back. In the winter there's not a whole lot of color because everything is covered in snow or a dark gray tree. But the way that it happens, you basically have a giant canvas. Like everything is colorful when the snow reflects it. So your mountains can become purple and orange in the right sunset, or with the northern lights they can kind of almost reflect green, which is pretty amazing. But it's still hard to beat the summer. This stuff is so beautiful. Okay, a little bit there, and then the trees kind of work their way down, so I'll put a bunch more down here. The texture, just like that. Okay. And then all gets blue. And this is why we did all of our town beforehand, because now you can kind of come back in and do something like this. Come back in there, a little bit more blue, and call it good. Okay, how's that? That'll do. And if you're not sure, give it a moment. Watercolor is this weird way of transforming in the 2 or 3 minutes you're not looking at it. You might not like it, and then you come back in just a second. It's perfect. Nothing changed. I don't know what the difference was, but also everything has changed. Okay, a little bit of maybe some droplets here. There we go. And oh dear, I think my legs have fallen asleep. I think it's time for a quick standing break. Oh, they're definitely asleep. Oh no. This is not a good place to have asleep legs. Just on the edge of a cliff. Whew. You know, I think I'm just gonna leave those right there. Let them see if those pins and needles eventually start and go away. In the meantime, I'm gonna distract myself with some more painting. So we've got our little islands there. Let's add a little bit more blue, maybe a little bit more indigo or purple, and let's go for the second round. So now we're kind of painting over top of some of these first ones, but you know what to do. You can also mix colors. I got a bit of purple, and maybe I'll do some blue, or the other way around. But you'll see now you can kind of tell that they're more in front. Just looks more realistic for some reason. A little bit of blue down here.
Okay, there's that. Ooh, yeah, those were asleep legs. Oh my gosh. Nothing quite like hiking up a mountain like this and then stopping. All right, more painting distractions. So we've got some of those coming up, and then we have, oh, I see some rocks tumbling down right now. Hopefully no people. We've got our boat down there. And one thing that I would love to add that I'm not seeing too many up right now, although when I look down, maybe there's some wildlife down there as well, are some birds. But we might add that right till the end. So if you want, we'll probably add an eagle, maybe a raven. We're kind of waiting for one to show up themselves. There's actually some ravens attacking an eagle shortly, but they might have moved on. But these cliffs are perfect places for these birds. All right, let's keep on keeping on here by filling in a few more of these mountains. I might even go kind of in reverse order and do some light mountains right here, and then I'll add those last couple dark ones in just a second. Might add a little bit of green right here. And what you can do is kind of make the edge of a mountain slightly lighter and then the valley slightly darker, which is how it is right there in some of these. So I might add a little bit of green and some brown, and then I'll mix it into some purple, which will highlight this valley right here. Something like this, if you look. We got this mountain right here is now kind of more distinct because of it. There we go. While I'm at it, why don't I come back in, because there's not that much snow. There's snow, but not that much, so I'll add some of that blue in here. There we go. Okay. It's getting nice and colorful, but here comes the sun to prove the point. That's really fun. Way down there, I can see there's some sailboats. It's really this big marine highway, and they'll all kind of cruise out through that valley. Those islands are kind of this gateway, and so a lot of times they'll cruise out through that valley. That's where the cruise ships come in, so the big boats, the barges. Because Seward was one of these kind of original deep water ports. It's gone through a lot of changes. It was originally, it's mile 0 of the Alaska Highway, so technically the Alaska Highway, and we have 2, starts here and goes up, and this is kind of where people came in. They'd come off these big ships, they'd take a ship up, they'd come right here, and then they'd head into the interior. That's where the Iditarod Trail, the original one, starts, and they've had some really interesting iterations over the years. In World War I, maybe World War II, in fact, they actually became a basking shark fishery. These huge, big 13-foot sharks, they'd fish them out of here and use them for leather, because there wasn't a whole lot of leather left after the war. But right now, it's still a spunky little town. Okay, what we're missing right now is some of these little islands right here. So let's add a couple of those in. Maybe a little bit of indigo, a little bit of purple. I'm just gonna add some right up to the top. So long as it's just slightly darker than the islands in front of it. Oh, here comes the sun. Perfect. Right there. Wonderful. Ta-da! It is that simple. I'd say half a watercolor is just trying not to overthink it. And we got this last big mountain. Well, not an island. You try to climb it, you realize it is basically an island. But this little island right here. Right over the top. Maybe I'll add some purple to finish that out. Feel that wind coming. This might be kind of my sign to finish this painting up. Pretty lucky to have this much sun for this long, but Seward and Whittier and all these kind of southern Alaskan ports are not known for their sun. A little bit of that right in here, and just add that down. I can see one more person heading their way down. Okay, there we go, something like that. How's that looking? Not too shabby, I don't think. That's pretty lovely. Maybe I'll add just a little bit more, just to kind of get some more depth into this peak right here, just for fun. A little bit more color. It's the beauty of watercolors. You can always add a little bit more. So don't be afraid to start, because it's better to start and realize you wanted more than to not start at all. Honestly, that's probably true with life. A little bit right there. There we go. And then let's add in those last tiny, tiny, tiny little details. So this little boat down here, a little bit there, and then we'll have our little last. Oh, I suppose I've got to kind of tune up my mountain here, and then we've got our little last tiny bit of mountain right down here. These trees. Let's add just a touch of those. They're pretty dark, so they're almost totally indigo here. Let's fill those in. And then let's add something flying. If you can hear right now, there's a helicopter dead ahead. I'm not sure if you can see it. It's pretty far off. It's kind of a binoculars thing. It is coming directly toward us, so we'll see. But you can add something natural. There's lots of eagles, but then there's also lots of float planes, helicopters. There it is, Exhibit A. There it goes. That's a little, I think it's a Robinson 44. They're kind of the little workhorse helicopters of Alaska. So anytime we're filming something, or trail crews, or ocean debris cleanups, we're often using little Robinson 44s. They're probably headed up to the bowl, I bet, of Mount Marathon. Got a little bit of that last mountain right there. Maybe a bit of indigo on the edge. And that should take care of this. Yeah. It's always hard to know when you're done too, you know? But I think I do want a little bit of an eagle somewhere up there. Maybe I want a float plane. No, let's put an eagle. I think an eagle or a raven. I'll probably make it small enough that I can't quite tell. This is the most nerve-wracking thing, right? Because you got a beautiful painting. What if you just like put a big old splop right here in the middle? But I think right here, in these clouds, I'd like a little bit of an eagle. So I'm gonna add just a little bit right there. A little bit of a V. And then maybe another one right below it. Just an upside down V there. There we go. Got our eagles, got our mountains, got our islands, got our boats. Got this little town of Seward just perched way down there on a shockingly nice day in one of the coolest places on earth. It's not the top of the mountain, but it's definitely the top of my list of spots I'd like to be. Okay, now when that dries, I'm gonna see if I can walk down this thing with some real stiff legs. The only benefit too is it's like, at least it's basically skiing down. And the shale is pretty soft as long as you don't fall, so hopefully it's a good one. Lots of people coming up too. Here comes a kiddo as well. I've got to remember too, there's lots of 80-year-olds that do this race. I mean, significant 80-year-olds. One of the coolest are, 86 or something like that. So if they can do it, I can do it. A little bit of water here. Which that's a terrible thing to say, because if you believe that in Alaska, some of the stuff that 80-year-olds and Alaskans do are just stuff I'd be terrified to myself. So maybe if they can do it, I can try it. Okay, got everything? Bear spray, check. Camera, check. Sketchbook, got this right here. Take a look, not too shabby. Take this on back down. We'll hopefully catch there before the rain